January 11th meeting of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners to order. I'd like to welcome everyone for being here. I think we have any visitors. We have commissioners and staff, so maybe things will move along pretty quickly this morning. That's a hint, guys. At this time, I'm going to ask Commissioner McCoy if she would to lead us in the pledge and have our invocation.
Let's all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us bow our heads, please. Dear Lord, we come before you this morning, once again, thanking you for another day. And we're thanking you for all your blessings and your mercy and your grace. Lord, we ask that you cover us all from this dangerous time of season. Lord, we ask that you cover our commissioners and those members of our staff and the citizens of Harnett County. We ask that we just thank you for allowing us to come here and assemble here for this meeting this morning. Now we ask that you cover us, guide us, and make sure that we are all on one accord. This is my prayer. In your name I pray.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Okay, at this time, we'll move to item 3 on the agenda. Mr. Blevins?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. On this particular discussion is around the CARES Act, which is round 4 of 4 for the HART system. It essentially is the agreement, if the board so chooses to accept it, will provide us $386,113, which we can use to claim losses, and also the agreement extends the period of performance, as DOT calls it, until June 30th of 23. In this particular case, we have made claims for round 1, 2, and 3. With this round 4, the total amount that came to the county, if we used it, the round 4, is $1.2 million. So it's been a help for the transit system. In this particular case, round 4, we're going to take our time before we make it to make sure that we have losses that we can show. We've been able to show losses throughout the previous 3 rounds. In a particular instance, the reason why we're showing losses is that we still haven't filled all our positions yet, so it's hard for us to operate at full capacity. My concern is, as we move forward, the rope and all those things that we're supposed to provide for, that we may see losses there. So it's a pretty simple grant. Again, this is FTA dollars through DOT, and all thing we're asking is you consider approving the 386.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
I just want to comment. I see there's no match here. This money is free money, right?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
No match.
No match.
No match.
No match. CARES dollars, $0.
And this is the last CARES Act money we got, right?
It's part of the initial in 2020. It's actually part of it.
Okay.
It's just 4 rounds. DOT broke it down in 4 rounds, kept going back to FTA to see if they could give us additional dollars. Public transit is big on at the federal level, and so they provided for a lot of different transit systems throughout the country.
Okay. Well, if everyone's agreeable, we will add this to the consent agenda for our meeting next Tuesday night.
I agree.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. All right, next up is the Development Services to update us on these proposed zoning changes and a text amendment to our Harnett County UDO.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board members. Jay Sykes, Development Services. Just quickly go over the two proposed rezonings. The first one is in the Hector's Creek Township, right there in the Kipling neighborhood. You'll probably recall the structure. It's owned by Dan Smith and Max Smith Jr. right there at the Kipling post office, essentially. It's 1.3 acres. It's currently zoned RA30. The request is to rezone it to commercial. It's essentially a non-residential duplex, if you will. The existing use of one side is the Kipling post office, other side it used to be a photography studio. It seems that the applicants just want flexibility to have something else to go into that other side there. Right now, doesn't seem to have any plans to tear it down and totally rebuild anything. Again, it's only 1.3 acres. It's public water, but it's private septic. You can see the parcel there. There was several little parcels. They recombined them to try and to make it compliant with minimum lot size and any sort of improvements that would be needed. There's about a year or so ago, there were some parcels that were rezoned to residential to commercial. Excuse me. There you can see it just south of there in the red. The whole area is employment mixed use as well as rural development node. So it's more than compliant with the land use classifications and the county's land use plan. So staff recommended approval based off of contingent or congruent commercial as well as land use compatibility. Planning board recommended approval unanimously as well. One citizen did speak in opposition. She lives directly behind this parcel, right on Porch Swing Lane, and she was just concerned about the potential of what could go there. It would be again, site improvements would be made, but again, it doesn't seem like I think they spoke in length after the meeting, the client or the applicant and the resident. But again, it doesn't seem like they want to get rid of the structure because they like the feel that it has in the community there.
So basically, what we're doing is changing the zoning to match the current use.
That's right. Yes, sir. And the current use has been non-residential for many, many, many years.
Yeah, as long as I can remember. And to our knowledge, right now, there's no new structures planned or anything like that. Is
That's
that
exactly correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is this considered uptown Kipling or downtown Kipling?
That's a good question.
Midtown.
Yeah, it's part of Midtown. Yes, good call. Yeah, it's right in between Lillington and Clivet Springs. So yeah, we'll go with it.
It's about halfway between Harnett Central Road and Kipling Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. You know, if you recall, DOT did some reconfiguring of Harnett Central Road and everything like that. So it's kind of separated from the railroad tracks in 401, which makes it a little better for traffic continuity. The other rezoning is a request. It's a little over 6.5 acres in the Avisboro Township on I-95, just south of Johnston County, south of Benston, north of Dunn. Requests to rezone parcel from commercial to industrial. It's owned by the Seas Family Partnership. They essentially have a heavy equipment towing operation. They, any wrecks, mainly from big trucks that happen on 95 and in the area, they tow them to this area, to this facility. There's minor repairs that are done in the shop. Maybe some oil changes and stuff, but the majority of the parcel is used for storage of basically unrepairable vehicles, insurance situations and stuff. So that's the main reason why it would be going from commercial to industrial, because of the heavy outdoor storage and the way it classifies, it would almost be classified as a junkyard. You can see there's a lot of commercial and industrial in the area right there on the 95 corridor. They've recently haven't quite. I don't think they've made it up to this exit yet for reconfiguration, but of course, the I-95 project is moving along pretty progressively. There's some floodplain in the back of this property, but they would not be allowed to use that for storage, by the way. FEMA does not require any sort of storage in the floodplain for disabled vehicles and so forth. Public water and private septic is used, so it seems that they're not going to, they won't be expanding the project, and very similar to the one that we just spoke of. It's been a long-term non-residential use there, and they're just kind of continuing on. It's a new owner, so it's more of an outdoor heavy equipment storage type situation than previous. And in the area, of course, it's employment mixed use all along I-95, so it's very compliant with the land use plan as well as adjacent zoning. Staff recommend approval. Planning board recommended approval as well unanimously, and no one spoke in opposition.
Any questions for staff on this rezoning request?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Has this piece of property been before us before for rezoning?
It has not. It looks very, very similar to
It's
some.
similar.
Yes.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yes, it does. It looks very similar to some that are just south of Dunn,
Right.
right around the Long Branch Road area. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's called. Actually, a planning board member asked how close it was to Copart because I believe they had the same notion as well.
Yeah.
But it's just on the other side of.
I just wanted to ask the question because I know that was
Yes, ma'am. Very good question because it does look very,
questionable.
all those parcels for some reason right there around the Dunn exits. I don't know if it's
Okay.
because of the way that the road's designed. They all look very, very similar, and they all have. Because I guess there's a lot of old truck stops and so forth in the way. That's correct. Yeah, this was also a violation, and they're going through this process and is in the process of remedying that violation as well.
Okay.
So they've been very compliant on that side as well. And
All right, very good.
our last item is a brief little text amendment. It's a staff request, internal request. It came to us initially from the fire marshal's office and supported by E91 GIS department to be compliant with the National Fire Protection Association regulations. And basically, within the UDO, fire marshal and E91 regulations, there are displaying of addresses. There's all sorts of, as you can see there, regulations of how residential and non-residential items should be, numbers specifically should be displayed. GPS is not GPS will fail, of course. So you still have to post numbers, and in compliance with the new fire code regulations. Non-residential and multifamily numbers should be 6 inches versus 5 inches. So this is just a minor amendment to be compliant with that code. As you can see, just to increase about 1 inch.
And does this apply just to commercial or does
Commercial and all non-residential, commercial and multifamily.
Okay.
Yes,
Because
sir.
there's a lot of residential in this county that doesn't have a house number.
Yeah, it doesn't have a house number at all.
If you don't know the GIS system, and know how to count down, sometimes you can't find something
Yes, sir.
without going up and down the road 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and that's actually built into our inspection process now.
It's a requirement, it's a state requirement to have house numbers before they receive their COs, so. But after we leave, and who knows what happens to it.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's on there when we get there.
Any question for staff on this? All right,
Appreciate y'all's time this morning.
thank you, appreciate
Chairman,
it.
if I could take just one
Yes, sir.
second.
Yes, sir.
And update the board, just to let you know, the 421 project, the overlay project, we finally had our first kickoff meeting, and we have our first discussion with our consultant on that, and that project's underway, so to speak. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that. And I also wanted to take a second and thank Mr. Wood for everything that he's done. I don't think it's today your last day, or
Yeah.
pretty much your last day. So he's been a wealth of knowledge for us from a department standpoint and for the county as a whole. And I think it's important that I wanted to take a minute just to say thank you for everything that he's done for our department and the county as a whole. So I appreciate that. And I also want to take another second and thank the board for taking his recommendation and approving the recent recommendations to increase the salaries of the employees. It means a lot to the morale in my office. I can guarantee that. It means a lot for job recruitment and also retention, which is becoming a huge issue. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Wood. So,
Thank you, Mark.
yeah, take care.
Thank you, Mr. Locklear. Appreciate those nice words. Thank you. And I agree with you what you said about Mr. Wood. He's
You
made,
never know what you're going to get.
in a short time, he's made a large impact.
You never know what you're going to get in temporary situations, but it's been great. We appreciate
Right.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate him because he has hit the road moving, and I'm gonna miss him.
We all are.
All right. Next on our agenda is to discuss a proposal from Sanford Holzhauser regarding economic development organizational structure.
Good morning.
Mr. Lockamy.
Commissioners. Christian Lockamy, glad to be here. I'm your new economic developer. So we've got a proposal from Sanford Holzhauser. This is to review our organizational structure for our economic development program. And I've worked with Sanford Holzhauser for a number of years. The project lead on this is going to be two fellows named Ernie Pearson and Rocky Lane. And they may potentially bring in other partners as needed or recommended. So what they're going to do is they're going to basically review all of the programs and documents, including MOUs, bylaws, articles of incorporation for the Property Corporation and ED Council. The effort will look at what's called best practices of up to 8 similar economic development programs in North Carolina and surrounding states that have adopted the public-private model for their economic development efforts. It includes consultations with the commissioners, the new director, the Properties Corporation, and the Economic Development Council. And the end result is a final report that will be presented to an audience that the commissioners designate. I have some thoughts on that as well. The timeline is from the start date is about approximately 1 month, 30 days. The cost to perform this work is $8,250. Something that's relevant that you'll need to know, there's a meeting scheduled for January the 20th at 9 a.m. in this building right here for Sanford Holzhauser to present this item to the Properties Corporation and also the Economic Development Council. And this aligns with our strategic plan from Rosen Associates to move the organization to a public-private model, and is again considered a best practice to streamline economic development efforts. Any questions?
That meeting on the 20th, we've got 2 commissioners on the Economic Development Council, 2 commissioners on the Properties Corporation. Do we need to advertise that meeting?
Yes, sir. We have
You-
a notice ready to go. We were waiting
Okay.
until after today
All
to
right.
do so.
All right. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Lockamy? Okay, well, I think this is something we could put on the consent agenda to approve. We'll just add that to the consent agenda, if you will. Madam Clerk?
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Haney, next up is discussion on the legislative priorities.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So we are bringing these back before you with the upcoming legislative luncheon in mind, scheduled for February 7th in this building. Typically every year we bring back the previous year's priorities to you and update those priorities accordingly. To date, what you have in your packet is the list of last year's priorities. I've sent those out to our department heads to get any updates, feedback, or additional priorities they have requested. If you don't mind, I'd like to just go over, give you some updates on these priorities, and then we can talk through how you'd like to move forward. would like to get approval at the work session on February 1st to allow us to go ahead and submit those to our legislators in advance of the February 7th meeting. If you'd like to, we can also discuss those at next week's meeting as well to give additional time. So going down the list, broadband, you had last year 5 categories with some priorities in each of those as your top priorities, and then the remaining priorities were listed behind that in the packet. So going through the top priorities, broadband has been the top priority for some time. Assist the county in expanding broadband access to underserved areas. As an update for this priority, the county did receive $26.4 million from the American Rescue Plan Act. The U.S. Treasury has allowed broadband as one of the allowable uses. However, state law had some conflicts that prevented us from using these funds for broadband. However, the recently approved state budget has given the county some authority to use those funds for broadband in what are called unserved areas. That unfortunately doesn't quite go as far as we wish it would. How unserved is defined is somewhat complicated, and there are also complications related to using those funds to apply for certain grants as well. One thing that did happen last week, the U.S. Treasury issued guidance, their final rule, which will allow the county to use $10 million of our allocation for general government purposes. The good news about that is you can use those for really any purpose. I would recommend probably taking some of that money, using it for broadband, displacing some of those funds, and then being able to use those displaced funds for broadband free and clear, like we did previously with the CARES Act. But obviously, as we move forward with your ARPA conversation, we can talk through that. We've also had some issues with some of the grants that we've applied for. To date, the county applied for a GREAT grant and an NTIA grant, and we have not heard about the NTIA grant yet, but it seems what we're finding is we have incumbent providers that are kind of disputing some of what's in the grant application, and by the time it's done, there's not a lot left for the county to do with those funds. So we may be in a situation where we have to just use funds as a match to our ISP to move those projects forward. However, with ARPA, with the infrastructure bill, there should be quite a few opportunities to apply for additional grants, which we will take full advantage of to the extent we can. Any additional questions or comments on broadband?
I understand there's still quite a bit of money in Raleigh that the legislature's allocated for or earmarked for broadband.
There is. I know there's the CAB program, I think connecting areas to broadband, which I believe per county there's approximately $4 million available on average. We're working with our ISP to look at all of those opportunities and to make sure that we're at the table and applying. Under Mr. Wood's guidance, Cloudwise is preparing a plan to build out the entire county with broadband, so that we'll know what it would take to build out broadband throughout the county and also the costs. And then Cloudwise is providing us that there are some areas that are so attractive to them that they would not require any kind of county contribution to go into. There are others that are, so the cost benefit analysis is not to where they would want to go in, probably no matter what, without some kind of county assistance. So we will bring that before you when that is complete.
Is the plan Cloudwise working on, is that wireless? Is that fiber? Or a combination?
It's a combination.
Okay.
Let me go back and revisit the item you mentioned about the definition for underserved areas.
Yes.
I know that the county leadership recognized early on that even if we got federal money, we had a barrier in state statute that would prevent us from doing a lot with broadband. So now what I'm hearing is that they have somewhat addressed that, but there's no clear understanding as to how that's been addressed. Is that what I'm hearing?
There is a clear understanding as to how it's been addressed. It just may not allow us to do as much as we would like to do. When you look at what is considered an unserved area, and I believe it's by census block, However, that issue relates to using ARPA funds. So if we're able to displace the funds, kind of like what we did with the CARES Act money, that barrier's gone. We can contribute that money to CloudWise to do really anything. It's just a matter of what funds are used for what project. When you apply for grants, those factors also come into play as well.
Thank you for that. And so if we're looking at census blocks, we have a census block that has a small area that's served, but the rest of it's not served. I'm assuming that would then not classify as unserved.
That is my understanding. I'm obviously not the expert on
I
that issue,
understand.
but that is my belief that if a portion of the block is served up to a certain standard, then it's all considered served, and that's something we're obviously working through with as we look
Yeah,
at.
there's obviously going to be a lot of work to do to identify
Yes,
each census block, I'm assuming.
yes, and we would lean heavily on our ISP partner to help us with that as they've been doing.
Very good. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chester.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any money in the infrastructure bill to be used for broadband?
I believe there is. They're scheduling some webinars and calls on that staff is attending. So we're, like we've been doing with the American Rescue Plan, we're working on making sure that we know as much as we can about these bills. And we're working with CloudWise to help make us aware of these opportunities as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say you're looking into that because the media has always stressed the fact that there is money there for broadband. And if I don't want to see us go into a position here where we're putting broadband in section parts of this county, because the most immediately and most important need for broadband is all over this county, and especially in the real rural areas. I mean, this is something broadband that we've been talking about since 2014, and a lot of citizens really misunderstood that the county commissioners could not just go out there and put broadband over this county. So to me, it's pleasing to my ears to see and hear, to educate the public exactly what we're doing as far as broadband, because there's so much misunderstanding about broadband coming to this county. And now we have an opportunity that I am very, very happy to hear about. And let's not miss any steps in making sure that we do what we need to do to get broadband all over this county.
Yes, ma'am. We will have that countywide build out for you at a point in the near future. Our goal at the staff level is to minimize the amount of county funds that have to go into these projects by trying to use grant opportunities and other revenue sources to help push broadband. But ultimately, you may be in a situation where it requires some investment of just general fund county dollars over the course of a number of years to do some of that, which will also give you the full picture so you can make the decision that makes the most sense for the county. I do want to say, if I may, that the board has already allocated $2 million from the Displaced CARES Act funding, which CloudWise is currently using to implement a wireless broadband solution in parts of the county. Phase one of that project, mostly north of the river, north and east of the river, is currently taking place, and we hope to be able to have bring people online in the coming months. And obviously, we will do a big media push so that everybody knows what's going on and what has been done, because I think there is some confusion from the public about just what is being done, and until you really start seeing that, it's hard to know.
We'll have to wait until we hear from CloudWise as to what they think we can go into areas and meet that unserved designation. We're pretty frustrated with that because, we've been led to believe that the state wanted this countywide in 100 counties. And now as we get the details, we're finding that there's still some roadblocks in there. And so that's the frustration. So the only point I wanted to make is at this point, I don't think funding is the issue, because you've got ARPA money, you've got access to some state ARPA money, and then probably some of that infrastructure money that was the $1.2 trillion that you can apply for. So I don't think at this point funding is going to be the issue. The issue is going to continue to be whether we face any roadblocks, because Chris Appel has made it clear from the beginning that the federal law allows us to use broadband, use ARPA money for broadband. That's clear. But you also have to comply with state law. Our problem is this state law. And so that's the frustrating part for all of us, but we'll work through it, and with CloudWise's help, we'll go through. We want to identify what we'd like to see, and then let's see where, if any, we have some roadblocks, because they're declaring this as served when we feel like if it's not unserved, it's underserved. And going back to the example of, you may have a small section that is served, but the rest of the block is not. We feel like we ought to be able to go into that block. So I think that's where we're going to get into the legal technicalities.
Let me ask one more question. They have already selected the sites that they're going into, right? Or have they selected those sites?
With our approval.
With our approval?
It's a conversation between CloudWise and the county. Really, the county saying, yes, these are our priorities. The current phase that is being enacted, they gave us two phases, really, one north of the river, one south of the river. That's just kind of how they divided it up from the wireless solution, and identified we could do the most good with the funding. It could go the farthest for that north side of the river section, but there is a phase two currently on a map, which obviously at this point we would reevaluate that and make sure that it is doing the most good. But yes, every time a project moves forward, it is a conversation between CloudWise and the county.
Okay. Thank you.
The what speeds is CloudWise looking at? We're talking about providing broadband to underserved. What speeds are we looking at?
My understanding is it's going to vary, because in some really rural areas, you won't have the demand for as much as you would have in some other areas. But I think at this point, we're just waiting to see what they come back with. We did have a minimum standard that we wanted for them to meet, but in some cases, they're going to want to go above that because they think the demand is there.
Well, I mean, because from an economic development standpoint, some of the speeds that are out there right now, they're not acceptable for companies to operate the business on. And we need to be looking at, or CloudWise needs to be looking at minimum of a gig, especially in areas that we've designated as for economic development and business parks. Just my 2 cents worth.
Well, and that's where, when they come back with the plan, we'll have an opportunity to comment on all of that and see if we think they've overlooked something.
One other question, if I can, and this is sort of chasing a rabbit. We had asked CloudWise about providing high-speed internet at the Jetport. Where do we stand with that?
I thought Ira ended up going with a private company.
Did he?
Yes, Ira
Okay.
is moving forward with that project. I can get you an update on where it stands right now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, all of a sudden, everybody's looking at Ben.
Waiting on CenturyLink to install it.
Okay. We're waiting on CenturyLink to install it at this point.
The order's been placed, we're just waiting on them to get it out there.
Do you know what speed they're installing?
I don't know the details, no, sir, I just know.
Is it fiber or copper?
again, don't know the details, sir. We're looking at it from the standpoint is they need access to our financials.
Yeah.
And they need the internet to get to our financial system back here. And so
Right.
that's, I know it's in the works, just don't know the details.
Right.
We will provide
Okay.
you with a full update on where that stands and what it entails.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the economic development priorities. The first one, assist the county with economic development marketing efforts. And really, this was making our legislators aware of what we have to offer and asking for assistance in marketing and advocating for what we have in Harnett County. The next one is assisting the county in the creation of industrial parks and sites for economic development. As I mentioned, I did send these out to our department directors, and Christian actually responded with some thoughts on this and wanted to add and buildings, sites and buildings to this priority, saying that in addition, the development of speculative industrial buildings has become necessary for communities to compete for companies seeking a new location or expansion. And we would ask our legislators to consider programs and funding mechanisms that can help communities take the next step in developing business parks to match the current business climate for how companies make location and expansion decisions, as approximately 90% of new and expanding companies are seeking an existing building. Next, Harnett Regional Jetport, asking for assistance with expanding and enhancing the Jetport. As an update, as you are all well aware, the county received $6 million for the new terminal in the recently passed state budget. So that priority has been addressed in that way, and I would ask the board, as we move forward with this process, would you like to alter this priority, either remove the priority or alter it to make the request somewhat different as we move forward now that that funding issue has been addressed?
Well, just my 2 cents, as I look at it, we included numerous things in this. Now, terminal's been addressed, but we've still got issues with hangar space. We've got issues, we could afford some lengthening of the runway. So there are some other things in here that I think in my opinion, that we need to leave in here. Some of the things we can take out, like apron expansion, new terminal, so on and so forth, those things that are listed here. But just my feeling, I think we need to leave this as a top priority with those needs that have not been addressed to this point.
Yeah, I know Parish and Partners is working on an airport layout plan. They're looking at all the needs that we have at the Jetport. I agree with what Commissioner Matthews said. We've got the funding for the terminal. I don't think we need additional funding for that. And as well as some of the ongoing projects, the runway, the apron expansion, the lighting. That's just about complete, isn't it?
Yeah, the lighting's about complete. The only thing they're waiting on there is the power to be run to the AWAS.
Right.
So we're still working with Duke Energy on that. My suggestion would be, if I may, Parish and I just got the deliverables today from Talbot and Bright, so that will be hand delivered to Parish and Partners today. So that is for the master plan. So they're putting all that together. You're a little over 50% complete with that. So that would kind of answer some of your questions. I would just caution you, as far as we have not received the bids for the terminal yet. I know we've got X amount. I don't know if it's going to be over that. So I would leave that in there for right now as far as the terminal is concerned, because you just don't know about construction and cost and things of that nature. You do also have opportunities to put in for another grant for site improvements as well as the terminal. Even though we've got funding for that, you can use that money for the needed hangar space, and what that will do, the master plan will entail that to tell you exactly what to do, what to put, and the size and location of where you want to put that. So in my opinion, I would just take the apron off, and maybe we could massage the rest of it to kind of match what you're thinking.
Good point, because you are correct. Building cost, they backed off a little bit in some areas, but they're still escalating.
I hope that amount that we're getting is going to cover that, but
Right.
in today's market, I couldn't tell you.
Exactly.
if the board is amenable, we can adjust, leave the priority there. Obviously, it is a major priority for the county, and just update it to include what has happened and what's still out there.
I think that would be a good plan,
Yeah.
in my opinion, going forward.
I agree with that.
Okay. Under transportation, support a four-lane highways into Wake County. As an update, as Chairman Weatherspoon has pointed out there, the bypass around the town of Angier, planning has been completed and there is funding for that project. It is moving forward. So we can certainly update this priority if you like to reflect the current situation, and obviously that is still an issue, transportation in Harnett County.
Yep, the 401 bypass and that project, actually, well, the project itself is moving forward. However, to my knowledge, at this time, there is no funding for that project. I know it's in the MTP for the 2050 MTP. Does that mean it's not going to be done till 2050? If it does, we're going to have a parking lot in northwest Harnett. It'll just be a gigantic parking lot. So I think something will be done before that. But certainly the 401 should be a high priority for us.
Okay. Supporting the creation of a bypass around the city of Dunn. That is still out there. I did talk to Development Services, and there is a 421 Dunn project with the number U-6052, but they weren't sure of the timeline. They think the initial work started in 2018. And then next is supporting the expansion of Campos boundary within Harnett County. Obviously, now that the census numbers have come out, that is becoming even more timely. And then under education, increasing lottery payouts to the counties.
Did the legislature did they not put back in the original
I think so.
amount this time?
I think they did.
Check on that, Brian. I almost believe they restored that funding this time.
I think they did restore it to 40%.
Okay. I will confirm
It used to
that.
be about 75.
I'll confirm that and have that as an update next time. And then obviously there's been a lot of, with ESSER and everything else, there's a lot of funding coming in for capital as well. Okay, those were the top priorities listed last time. Going through additional priorities, I will go through them rather quickly unless there are comments or questions. Appropriating full funding for the Federal Impact Aid Program. It's a federal priority. I'm not aware of any movement that has happened on that in the last year.
I will say that Representative Hudson has been working on that and has made some progress, not quite where we need to be at this time, but so I think we probably do leave that.
Okay, yes, his office has been very interested
Right.
in moving that priority forward. Assisting with efforts to expand natural gas capacity.
Mr. Haney,
Yes.
if I can interrupt.
Yes.
The efforts to expand natural gas capacity.
Yes.
My opinion is this should be moved up to one of the top priorities. You can put it as a subsection under economic development if you want to, but like down in western Harnett along the 87 corridor, they have no natural gas down there, and it's hindering. Because of the lack of natural gas and some issues with water and sewer, they have lost three companies that were planning to come in down there. I think Starbucks was one of them. I'm not sure what the other two were. They were fast food places. But anyway, I think we need to have natural gas. I know natural gas goes, I don't know if it goes all the way into northwest Harnett. I know it goes part of the way. That area around 42 going out to Chatham County, I don't think they have natural gas. They ran it part of the way and stopped. Anger has natural gas. I don't know about Coates. I don't think they have it. Dunn has natural gas. I think Irwin has natural gas. I'm not sure about that. I believe they do. But we've got a lot of areas in this county that do not have natural gas. That, to me, should become a major priority. I'll ask my fellow commissioners what they think so we can make that change if they're in agreement.
I totally agree. I suspect once we get to the point where we're able to do some study on possible certification of WIP, if we go that direction, we're going to find that that's probably one of the things that's held that back in anything developing there. But there again, I do think that is a top priority for us, or should be part of the top priority list.
And if, Mr. Chairman, if I may speak, I agree with you because natural gas as well as broadband has been the two top subjects that we have been talking about for years. And with the western part of the county, I'm very familiar with that because we took that tour. I believe you went on that tour.
Yes, ma'am.
With us in our plan to try to get, we were at that time trying to work to get natural gas in that area. So, and that's been some years ago. We weren't able to do it then because of the cost of all. So I agree, we need to move that up. We need to move that right up there with broadband because these are two things in this county that we need bad.
I agree with you completely. And,
Okay, and we'll do that as, obviously, it is, falls under economic development substantially, so we will do that.
Mr. Johnson?
I've been hearing about this natural gas for a long time, and it's a hindrance to our economic development.
It is.
And it needs to be, I agree with it, needs to be bumped up on our priority list.
All right, we'll do that.
All right, thank you.
Next is requiring accurate county assignment of sales tax for delivered goods. We've talked about this before. Obviously, with the number of zip codes in Harnett County that overlap with other counties, particularly in Wake, Lee, Cumberland, some of our surrounding counties, there is a strong likelihood that sales tax dollars from online purchases and from building supplies shipped to site are going to other counties instead of to Harnett County. We have created promotional materials to explain this issue and to help educate our citizens and our builders about that. But obviously, a legislative solution would be helpful as well.
And not only that, but Mr. Wood and I have had a couple of conversations about this. When Mr. Trout comes on board, one of the things that we're going to ask is to, if he can get staff to come up with some kind of a plan to educate the public. I know we've done it before, or attempted to do it before, but right now, we've got to get people using 9-digit zip codes. And I'm guilty. I'm guilty myself. But it's imperative that I just found out, I didn't know this, but Benson is actually, their zip code is in Harnett County. I didn't realize that.
Yes.
I knew the Andrews zip code 27501 bumped into Benson out at McGee's Crossroads, but I didn't realize it came up Old Fairground Road, that area.
Yeah. If you look at a map of Harnett County, there's a lot of a large portion of the county has zip codes that are primarily based in other counties. It's a substantial issue. And we'll obviously wait till Mr. Trout comes on board to have that discussion with him. But Ashley Bauer and myself have had those discussions, and we've got some ideas about how we can help get the word out, because it is a substantial issue.
Right,
Okay.
didn't we try this a couple of years ago?
We have talked about it. We have put promotional materials together, but I think
Never got off the
communication in
ground.
this county, especially to those unincorporated areas, can be a challenge. One option we're looking at is, and we have done in the past for special situations like the $100 million bond, that sort of thing, was putting something in the utility bills. That seems to be one of the best ways to get information to the most people. So
I get one of those too.
there you go. So that's something we're looking at, as well as some other options, but we'll continue discussing that as we move forward.
I think we talked about it right before COVID hit. Might put a stop to aggression on that part.
Yes, we do have the educational materials there are brochures actually down in this building. As we get out more and go to more events, we want to make sure we have that information available for the public. Okay. Provide additional solutions to assist with funding public education, a state and federal priority related to the increased growth in Harnett County and the burden it puts on our schools. Next, providing funding to help counties implement school security measures. This was based on a previous budget request from Harnett County Schools. That the cost to modify schools to address present-day threats was approximately $1.4 million that had been requested, and we were seeking additional funding from the state for that. Preserving funding for local health departments. This was submitted by Health Director John Rouse. The county had lost approximately $2.2 million since 2011 due to carve-outs, which make operation more difficult. And then this issue obviously is of renewed importance due to the COVID-19 pandemic, requesting preservation of those funding levels from the state.
Can I, what do you mean by carve-outs?
I would have to ask John Rouse to get more information, but I think there have been funding reductions. I think those funds have been allocated elsewhere.
Specifically somewhere else?
Yes.
Okay.
Next was lowering the DOT road takeover threshold to 60 to 65% of build-out. This was requested by Development Services. And as it stands, DOT requires 75% of homes in a subdivision be occupied before a developer can petition to have the roads taken over, which has on occasion resulted in developers pulling out of projects before the roads can be taken over and creating issues for homeowners in the subdivision. This request would be to move the threshold down to 60 to 65% of build out, and that occupancy not be a requirement. The next three were submitted by Emergency Services. One was support legislation to assist firefighters who contract diseases related to service. And obviously with these requests is also the request for a funding stream that would make this something that the county didn't have to cover the additional cost of doing that. Next, expanding fire prevention grant opportunities to include counties, and then requiring licensing and permitting for fire extinguisher and suppression system installation. Next was giving school systems flexibility in establishing their K-12 calendars. I don't believe that issue has been fully addressed. I know that there were bills in the past, but I don't think any of them made it through.
Brian, could I just ask one question? Now these House Bill 520, for example, Senate Bill, whatever, are these bills from this past legislative session?
Those were from last year's
That's
session,
what
so
I'm saying.
those are
So
not.
we need to update some of these things and probably some of these numbers as well. So that was my question. So we're actually reviewing what we presented last year, and we
What
will
you have
update.
before you is last year's priorities,
Gotcha.
and we will update everything before that goes to the.
Thank you.
Some departments already have, but for those things, we were going to make sure that happens.
Thank
Yes. Next is providing funding to support and establish treatment courts. This priority came out several years ago due to the county needing additional funding to help support Veterans Treatment Court moving forward. Several years ago, the state, the General Assembly included $150,000 in the state budget, but the budget at the time was not passed. However, since this priority has been in there this year, there was funding included in the current state budget for this priority. So this may be something that we feel comfortably has been addressed.
Very good.
Yeah.
If the board is comfortable with that, we'll take that one off.
Yeah, just my opinion, if we've received funding that allows us to continue this program without local taxpayer dollars going into it, yes, I think we could.
Yes, and I've actually, we've got a meeting with Judge Holcomb tomorrow to talk through as we move forward with the court, and I want to talk through the plan for this funding. It will help tremendously, I would imagine, with both staffing and treatment. So we'll
Very
bring
good.
more information back to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Appropriate recurring funds to support state aid for public libraries. This came, I think last year, the library requested restoration of state aid funding to the pre-2011 level of $15.7 million in recurring funding, as well as the elimination of special provisions distributing state aid outside of the equitable formula developed by the State Library Commission. And then the library also requested the appropriation of $500,000 in recurring funding for the NC Kids digital library. Next, and actually the final priority that y'all had on last year's list was increasing the appropriation to Agricultural Development and Farmland Preservation Trust Fund. And this fund provides payments to families for placing conservation easements on their property while still allowing the land to be used for agricultural and timber production. Due to limited funding, projects had been turned down or been only partially funded. Last year, Soil and Water requested increasing the annual appropriation from $4.3 million to $6 million. I've received an update from Lynn Lambert that actually was increased to $6 million. However, they are still seeing a need that outweighs current allocation. So she has requested, and I guess the state association also was requesting increasing that from $6 to $10 million. And then additionally, I did receive a request from Paul Polinsky with Social Services to preserve federal and state block grants for county administered programs and to oppose unfunded mandates and prevent workload increases to counties. And we can flesh that out if the board is okay with that. And I can get more information if you've got questions.
I'd like to go back up to transportation.
Yes.
And I'm not sure how to word this, but we've got a real problem in this county. We've still got a lot of areas that are rural, that are farmland. And we've got a lot of roads that were built for farm equipment in the 30s and 40s. And we're in the 2000s, and those roads are not as large as some of the equipment. I think we need to add something to our priorities under transportation to get the legislators to work with DOT on doing something about these rural roads. I know there's a farmer in Northwest Harnett. He was going down the road with one of these gang discs. It was folded up, but traffic was backed up, probably 20 cars or more, and he tried to get over. He fell off the curb or off the pavement, broke the axle on his disc, and it cost him I don't know, $5,000 or more to get that axle replaced. And it's not just Northwest Harnett. I'm sure if you talk to the farmers down in the southern part of the county, they have the same problem. And so it's a county-wide problem. I think it's something that we need to ask the legislators to work with DOT because, I mean, we don't do roads. We got to depend on them to do that, but that's something we need. That's something that's needed in this county.
I'd say if the board is inclined, we can certainly add some draft language for you to consider.
I'll ask for comments from my fellow commissioners if they agree or disagree.
I agree with you. We stay in a rural county.
Commissioner McCoy, I agree, because I know that there are some areas in this county where they have these secondary roads, and a lot of them don't even have speed limits on those roads, causing a serious problem. Because I had several calls from constituents out in the western part of the county. So I think it all needs to be addressed. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, we've had a severe problem in Kipling Road. Okay.
Okay, we'll add that.
And one other thing I will say about this priority list, I can't speak for Representative Penny and Representative Strickland, but I know Senator Bergen has always told me, give me your top 3 needs or wants, and that's what I'll work on. He said, when we get those 3, then we'll talk about 3 more. So I don't know how we would do it, or I think it would be good if we could say, look, these are all our wants and needs, but these are the top 3. These are the absolute priority for what we want you guys to work on. And I'm throwing that out for comments from the rest of the board.
And I will certainly concur with Chairman Weatherspoon. I've heard that comment, or that comment has been made in my presence many times by Senator Bergen. And with that being said, I would say that I believe if we look at our first 3 where we listed broadband, economic and development, and Harnett Regional Jetport, I think that was our goal last year, that those would be our top 3. So I don't know if we want to do something to make that very clear, or if we want to keep those 3 or adjust those 3 or whatever. But if that's the direction that fellow commissioners would like to take, then certainly we could come up with some way to put some language in there to say, hey, these are our top 3 priorities, and these are other things we need, but we would like to focus on these 3 first. That's just my thoughts.
Commissioner McCoy, your thoughts?
My thoughts are the same. I mean, we prioritize 3, but let's not lose sight of the fact that the other 2 that we have selected as through the number 5 that we prioritize. We can prioritize the 3, but let's not forget about how important the other 2 are too.
Agreed.
And if I may, over the years, this list has grown as we've allowed departments to submit and request, and I think that's what we had tried to do in prioritizing a top 5 at one point. This past year, we had the 5 priority areas, and I think there were 8 top actual priorities. So you don't want our legislators and even staff to get lost in all of them, even though they're all obviously priorities. So I think that would be beneficial. And if you would like, because obviously we've got these 5 areas, we're adding natural gas up there, so you'll have 9 priorities under those 5 areas. If you'd like, I can bring back a revised draft to you at your next meeting for you to talk through that and maybe set those priorities a little bit further.
I just want to say I appreciate Senator Bergen and the others working with us on these things, and I think the top 3 would be the ideal thing to go in with them without overloading them with everything all at one time.
But I agree with what Commissioner McCoy said. We can pick the top 3, but we certainly want to stress that the others are important also. That the others are still needs that we have as a county. But these are the top 3. If you can only work on 3, work on these. But if you can work on more than that, or when you get those 3 taken care of, here's the rest of the list in no order of priority.
Pick 3 more, right?
Yeah, pick 3 more. We picked 3, now you pick 3.
Well, and then you've also got some that are federal only, for our federal legislators, and then To put your mind at ease a little bit, that Veterans Court one was way down on the list in terms of where it was positioned on this list, and it got addressed. So I think, as opportunity arises, it seems like these are being addressed. We've scratched quite a few off the list over the last several years.
Would it be good to designate which, do a priority or a listing of the state and then a listing of the federal and sort of, instead of mixing them all up together?
I just want to say, let's not lose sight of what's happening today. Something that has never happened in my lifetime, with all of this money coming into the state. So we need to be in a position to take advantage of this money, because it's not going to happen forever. So I agree with the prioritizing 3, but let's not lose sight on the others that we because they are very important. So yes, I agree with that.
And we have historically broken down, kind of given you an indication next to each priority of what's a state versus a federal, and some overlap. So I think we could certainly do that. I know that impact aid issue from a federal standpoint is probably one of the most substantial on this list. But obviously that's a heavy lift, as we've seen.
All right.
Well, I will say, just to follow up on that, we have been championing that for years. This is the first time in my career that I really got the feeling that somebody was taking what we were asking for seriously and trying to find a solution. And I applaud Representative Hudson for really taking up that cause. So anyway, I'll just throw that out there. I mean, 40 plus years is the first time I can remember somebody really stepping up to the plate for us.
It means something. It means a lot.
It does.
If you're comfortable, I can revise these based on updates and what we've discussed today. If you've got any additional that you think of, or any changes that you want to make between now and then, the revision will be included in your packet for the meeting on the 18th, and feel free to reach out and let me know.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Good job, Brian.
Yes, thank you.
Brian, good job.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is discuss and consider recommendation on the Harnett Regional Jetport fuel purchasing contract.
Okay.
Mr. Wood?
Okay. I had given you a memo, but I think we pulled that off the agenda at the last meeting. And the reason for that was we needed to send it to the Jetport Advisory Committee. They met in the past week. And so whenever you reschedule this on your agenda, we have a difference of opinion on there. I've recommended one thing to you. I was not at their meeting because I wasn't here in town when that took place, but they have a different opinion. So I simply wanted to make you aware, and Lou is on that board, so he can speak to what they came up with. But we're not prepared today to go into the details on it because we didn't submit my memo to you, and we haven't submitted anything in writing, I don't think, from the committee yet, Lou. Is that right?
That's correct.
So, at your next, whenever you schedule it for the next meeting, you need to read carefully both sides of that and then just make a decision on it. I would say this: I would hope that you would move fairly quickly, one way or the other, because we have gone out for the bids, and we need to get this in place because whichever one you go would probably be an improvement over what we're doing. Because, as y'all know, when we took the airport over in June, we just pretty much continued with who we were with, and with the understanding that we were then going to come back and do what we're doing now, which is basically engage in a long-term 3-year contract. I believe this is 3 years with an option to renew for another 2, if I remember correctly. So That's pretty much where we're at on it. But again, I won't be here for that discussion, but I would hope that y'all would look at both sides of it and then come to the conclusion you think is best for the county.
Of what the advisory board came up with in their meeting last week, and feel free to speak up, Mr. Price, if we had 3 bids. The advisory board voted to reject all 3 bids. They want to go back out. They want to go and do another RFP, be more specific, and go out for new bids. They're going out for 3 years with 2 one-year options and 5 years with a 1-year or two one-year options after that. Part of the problem with the bids they had, there were some discrepancy in the multipliers that were used and in calculating some of the numbers and that type of thing. So that's why and they are forming a committee, a group of 3 or 4 pilots that obviously use fuel and see how fuel is priced at other airports and that type of thing. They're going to put together the RFP and proceed that way. So we'll get it, I guess, once legal has finished with the new RFP. It'll come to the board for approval before it's sent out, or not?
The RFP itself wouldn't get formal approval, but we'll review, make sure we have everything we want to include in the RFP before we post it.
So that's where we're at with the, and we've been operating on a month-to-month basis, so we'll just continue to operate on a month until we get this contract nailed down. Any questions of anybody?
So I guess procedurally, where we're at now is y'all need to take a vote on what you want to do. Because before you can go out again, you need to either accept or reject the current bids. Is that correct procedurally?
Right, so take a vote so the vote is to reject the current bids and reissue a new RFP.
Right, but they wouldn't, you couldn't go out for new bids until you had rejected those.
Right, we need to
Okay.
reject.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that needs to be scheduled then for y'all to discuss those 2
Actually,
items.
we made a motion at the last meeting for this particular item, we made allowance, we passed a motion to allow us to vote on that at this meeting. So we could actually vote today on this.
You could, but we haven't provided the details for them. I don't think they've ever seen my memo.
Well, but
We pulled my memo from the previous meeting, so they've not seen that option. You've gone over the option from the committee, but they've not seen the option that I
Right.
provided.
okay.
So I think what you're saying, Mr. Wood, is that we haven't seen the recommendation from the committee at the Jetport committee?
Well,
The Jetport
we
the
sent
committee
out
out there.
We sent out the RFPs. We got them back. The staff analyzed them. There was a significant savings there, and that's why I think you need to study both options very carefully, because the one we got back has a significant savings to the county. And one of the reasons is one of the vendors offered us a $25,000 bonus. And the other major difference was 2 out of 3 vendors had offered us a fueling truck free of charge. One of the vendors gave you that truck for 18 months free, but after that you had to pay for it. So that's in a 3-year contract, that's a 21,000 some odd dollar difference, plus the $25,000 savings. So I think before you vote on anything, you need to look. What I would suggest is that the committee, someone for the committee, write up what it is they're recommending, which Lou just went over, and then include the memo that the staff did, and it's over my signature, as to what we were proposing. And then, look at both of them, analyze both of them, and then make a decision. So if you do that, I think you'll have all the information before you pull the trigger on it. That's all I'm suggesting.
So you're suggesting that we wait before we take the vote?
Yes, and if, for instance, if Lou feels like they could have that information in writing for you, you could. We're getting ready to do the agenda for the 18th. You could put it on for the 18th, and that way we don't lose any more time. I do agree, as I said earlier, we need to make a decision on this one way or the other, because as we've both indicated to you, we're on a month-to-month contract now, so you're not getting as good a price as you would get by bidding it out, because you've put 3 companies in competition to try to get the business. Y'all have to excuse my voice. I'm a Georgia fan, and we got a little excited last night.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's going to take me a couple of days to come back down after that.
I'm not sure that the committee will be ready by the 18th. Our next work session is February 1st.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to table this until the February 1st work session.
So moved. I'll make a motion table to the February 1st work session.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I just want to say, make sure we get the information so we can compare.
Well, Melissa has, she has the report that I did, so I think we're just waiting on the committee to get that written up. And so we'll have both for you, and then you can look at both of them.
Okay.
Now, I will not be here. I wasn't going to be here on the 18th either. But I think Coley was involved with that, and so you've got staff people who understand the presentation that we're making, and you've got people from the committee, and Lou and Matt are on that committee. I believe Matt was at the meeting too.
Yes, that's correct.
So they'll be able to give you what the committee recommended, and then you just make a decision from there.
All right. Next is the county manager's report.
Okay. Well, I guess the first thing I just want to say, this will be my last meeting. I will be coming back next Tuesday. Just to refresh everybody's memory, we're having an 11:30 luncheon for Brent Trout, your new manager coming in. And he will start that morning. We're going to take the morning and try to get all of the, I've already talked to Brent. We're going to try to get all the HR stuff out of the way, get him signed up for everything and take all that out of the way. We'll have the luncheon at that point. I did take the liberty of, found out in talking with Brent that his wife is coming with him because they're going to do some house hunting. They have found an apartment, but they're still looking for a permanent house here in Harnett County. So I took the liberty on your behalf of inviting her to the luncheon as well. And I don't know if she'll be able to make it or not, but I did want you to know that. Following the luncheon from 1 to 5, the real reason I'm coming back is we have set up about a 4-hour meeting to where I can kind of go over with Brent where we're at on a lot of projects, and then kind of going over some of the key issues and where we're at on different things, so that he has a good background on it. And he was very appreciative of that, but I wanted to give him that background, and then you know, from that point on, he's ready to go. You'll notice in the regular meeting, as we get to the agenda, our proposal to you is that you swear him in at the front of the meeting, and then he takes over the meeting. We have purposely not put a lot of things on there so that, and we have staff people that can address all those issues. So it's not like he, will be thrown into the meeting and not have had time to look at everything. And we're sending it to him, and he gets the packet and everything. So I think he's ready to go. I just want to say also, I think y'all have made an excellent choice in my further dealings with him. I've been very impressed with him. So, and finally, I'd just like to say I've enjoyed working with y'all. It's been good.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wood. We appreciate that. And as I said earlier, you've, in a short period of time, you've done a tremendous amount for this county, and we appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
And I concur. Thank you, Mr. Wood. I've enjoyed working with you and appreciate your dedication to the county, and just make sure you leave Mr. Tractor's cell number.
And I'll try not to hit
You
any
might be
more-
on speed dial.
And I'll try not to hit any more deer on my way out of town.
That's right. You've had some experiences
Yeah.
driving around, I know, but we do appreciate everything.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say that I really appreciate you. I appreciate the things that you have done here in this county, because you certainly have made a difference. But I also appreciate your open ear and understanding what's going on in this county. And I'm going to put a bug in you before you leave, because you and I had a conversation, and I want you to put that bug in Mr. Trent's ear. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? I think the agenda for our meeting on Tuesdays, I don't think it changed a whole lot. We added a few consent agenda items.
Yeah. I don't think it has either.
And then we have some appointments for the Harnett County Commission for Women and Youth. We have two people from District 4. Is this district sensitive?
I'd have to go back and double check that.
Okay, if you could let me know about that.
I will.
All right, and then everybody has their calendar and meeting calendar moving forward. Is there anything else to come before the commissioners? Do we have need for a closed session?
Yes, sir.
Well, if, yes, sir, Sheriff?
I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I'd like to, before y'all leave, we've been, as a community, I just wanted to report to you on the CARES for the Kentucky disaster. I just left the warehouse. We've been over there. Them guys and ladies have been working very hard. And I just ordered a second truck, and it's already 3/4 full. And that just shows how resilient this community is and all the help that we've gotten from everybody. So I'm extending an invitation to all of you. The trucks will be pulling out Thursday, and they're going to be in front of the sheriff's office. I think the news media and I want to come over and do a story. So I'd like as many of you that in the public, as many of you that can come, that were also big in that first meeting we had. But I'm just so humbled by what the citizens of this county, how they pulled together to help a fellow community and citizens. It's amazing to be able to at the warehouse and watch all. And we had a good plan. We had pickups, deliveries, and I'm just so humbled by it. But I want to tell y'all, thank y'all so much. But you being commissioners, I think it would say a whole lot for our community and other places when they see you there to see that truck go off if any way possible. So thank y'all so much. And Mr. Wood, it's been a pleasure working with you.
Same here.
So, and if I never help you in Harnett County, you give me a call.
Thank
Y'all have a blessed day.
About
Thanks,
what
Sheriff.
time would that be, Sheriff?
So
About what time would that be?
10:30.
It's gonna be at 10:30.
Okay, thank you.
2:30 in the morning. It's a Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. All right, anything else to come before the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? We are adjourned.